a child's crayon drawing, a stranger in a leather vest, and 3 words scrawled at the top, "Help my mom." By the time the sun rose over a forgotten trailer park, everything had changed. This isn't a story about violence or revenge. It's about what happens when the right person hears a cry for help and refuses to look away. Doc pushed his empty plate aside and wrapped both hands around his coffee mug, letting the heat seep into his calloused palms. Well past 3 in the morning. The Red Rock Diner hummed with that specific kind of silence that only exists in the dead hours. Fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the distant clatter of dishes being washed in the back, and Donna, the night shift waitress, counting tips at the far end of the counter. He came here when sleep wouldn't stick, when the noise in his head got louder than the rumble of his bike. Tonight was one of those nights. The bell above the door chimed. Doc didn't look up. Probably a trucker stopping for fuel and burnt coffee. But then he felt it, that shift in the air when someone's watching you. He lifted his eyes. A little girl stood 3 feet from his booth. 7, maybe 8 years old. Tangled brown hair, oversized t-shirt hanging past her knees, dirt caked under her fingernails. Her feet were bare. Doc sat up straighter. "Hey there. You okay?" She didn't answer, just stared at him with eyes that belonged to someone much older, someone who'd already learned that the world wasn't safe. Then, with trembling hands, she slid a piece of paper across the table. It was folded into a small square, creased like it had been opened and closed a dozen times. Doc unfolded it carefully. Crayon. Blue house with a crooked door. Yellow sun in the corner that didn't quite fit the scene. A stick figure woman with long hair and tears. Actual tears, drawn as blue drops falling from her face. And looming over her, a tall shadow figure with angry red scribbles around it. At the top, in shaky child's handwriting, "Help my mom." Doc's jaw tightened. He'd seen plenty in his 46 years. 2 tours overseas, a decade in the club, more broken homes than he could count. But this gutted him in a way nothing else had. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Lena." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Lena, that's a pretty name." He kept his tone soft, the way you'd talk to a spooked animal. "Where's your mom right now?" Lena pointed vaguely toward the window, toward the highway that stretched into darkness. "Home. Lot 23. Pine Ridge." She nodded. Doc knew the place. Rundown trailer park about 2 miles east, chain-link fences sagging, cars on blocks, the kind of place people ended up when everywhere else had closed its doors. "And who's the shadow in your picture?" Lena's eyes dropped to the floor. "Travis. He's mean when he drinks. He drinks a lot." Doc felt the familiar heat rising in his chest, the kind that used to get him in trouble, the kind the club had taught him to control. Almost. "Does he hurt you?" "Sometimes he yells really loud. Break stuff. Last week he pushed Mommy into the wall and her mouth was bleeding." Lena's voice cracked. "She tells me to hide in the closet when he gets like that. But I heard her crying through the door." Donna started toward the booth with her coffee pot, but Doc caught her eye and gave a small shake of his head. She backed away without a word. "Lena, how'd you get here, baby?" "It's the middle of the night. I rode my bike. It's outside." She twisted the hem of her shirt. "Mommy doesn't know I left. She was asleep. I didn't know what else to do. I see you here sometimes when Mommy brings me for pancakes on Fridays. You look strong. Like you could help." Something shifted in Doc's chest. A weight he'd been carrying for years suddenly pressing harder. This kid had risked everything on the hope that a stranger might care enough to listen. "You did the right thing, Lena. You did real good." He pulled his phone from his vest pocket. "I'm gonna make a call. Okay? Some friends of mine. We're gonna figure this out." "Are you gonna tell the police?" "Maybe. But first, I'm gonna make sure you and your mom are safe." "That's a promise." He stepped outside, the November cold biting through his flannel. His breath fogged as he dialed Chief, the club's sergeant-at-arms. "This better be good, document. Pine Ridge Trailer Park. Lot 23. Single mom. Kid named Lena. Boyfriend with a mean streak. Doc's voice was steady, but his free hand curled into a fist. Kid rode her bike 2 miles in the middle of the night to ask for help. Silence. Then, I'll make the calls. Meet at the clubhouse in 45. Make it an hour. I'm staying with the kid till her mom knows she's safe. Doc walked back inside. Lena was still standing by the booth, looking smaller than ever. He slid into the seat and gestured for her to sit across from him. You like hot chocolate? For the first time, something like hope flickered across her face. With marshmallows? With as many marshmallows as Donna's got. While Lena sipped her drink, Doc studied that crayon drawing again. The shadow figure, the tears, the silent scream of a child who'd run out of options. He'd failed someone once, a lifetime ago. A little girl with his eyes who'd slipped through the cracks while he was too broken to catch her. But tonight he had a choice, and he was making it. By the time headlights cut through the diner windows, Chief's bike, followed by gunners and chains, Doc had made his decision. The broken sons were riding at dawn, and Travis was about to learn what happened when you hurt someone under their protection. The clubhouse smelled like leather, motor oil, and stale beer. Doc stood at the center of the room, Lena's drawing spread flat on the scarred wooden table. Around him, patched members leaned in, their faces hard in the dim light. Chief spoke first. We riding in hot or we playing this smart? Smart, Doc said. No threats, no violence. We show up, we make our presence known, and we give this piece of trash a choice. Leave on his own or leave in pieces. Chains crossed his arms, gray beard catching the dim light. And if Mama doesn't want our help? Some women, they're scared to leave. Trauma does that. Doc had thought about that. Then we make sure she knows she's got options. Real ones. Karina's crew has been helping women get out for years. Safe houses, legal aid, job connections. We don't force anything. We just open the door. Gunner tapped the table, his wedding ring making a dull thunk against the wood. What about the cops? We roll up 15 deep. They're gonna have questions. Let them ask. Doc's voice was granite. We're not breaking any laws. We're visiting a neighbor, having coffee on public property. They want to make something of it, they can try. The room went quiet. These men knew what happened when the system looked the other way. They'd lived through it, survived it, and refused to let it happen to someone else. That's why the club existed. Not just to ride, but to be the wall between predators and prey when the system failed. Doc felt his phone buzz. A text from Donna. Girls asleep in the back booth. I'll watch her till you're ready. He pocketed the phone and looked at his brothers. We roll before dawn. I want us there when the sun comes up. Nods all around. The meeting broke up, but Doc didn't leave. He walked to the back room, past the pool table and the wall of memorial photos, brothers who'd ridden their last mile. He stopped at his locker and pulled out a battered shoebox from the top shelf. Inside was a single photograph. A little girl, maybe 5, gap-toothed smile, sitting on his shoulders. Melissa, his daughter. He hadn't looked at this picture in 3 years. The memories came anyway, sharp and unwanted. His ex-wife, Carla, spiraling after her sister's death. Pills first, then needles. He tried to hold it together, but he was drowning too. Anger, helplessness, the kind of rage that made him punch walls and drink until he couldn't feel anything. Child services came on a Tuesday. Took Melissa while Carla was passed out and he was in county lockup for a bar fight. He'd petitioned for custody. Failed the home inspection. Failed the drug test, but it didn't matter. By the time he got clean, got his life together, Melissa was gone. Adopted by a family in another state. Records sealed. The system said it was better this way. Doc never believed that, not for a second. He set the photo down and gripped the edge of the locker until his knuckles went white. 17 years. She'd be 22 now. A whole person he'd never know. He'd failed her. Let her slip away because he couldn't pull himself together fast enough. But Lena was right here, right now, asking for help. 2 miles away, Rachel Carter stared at the water-stained ceiling, unable to sleep. Travis snored beside her, his breath sour with whiskey. Her lip throbbed where he'd split it 3 days ago. She'd told the neighbor she'd walked into a cabinet. The lies were getting easier. That's what scared her most. She turned her head carefully, listening for Lena in the next room. Silence. Good. Let her sleep. Tomorrow Rachel would take her to the park. Maybe get ice cream if she could scrape together enough change. Normal things. Pretend things. She'd tried to leave. Twice. The first time, she'd packed 2 bags and driven to her sister's place in Reading. Travis found her 4 days later, crying on the doorstep, swearing he'd change. Swearing he loved her. She'd believed him because believing was easier than being alone with a 6-year-old and no job. The second time, she'd made it to a women's shelter. Stayed 2 weeks. Then Travis started calling, threatening to file for custody of Lena. Said he had friends in the system. Said he'd make sure Rachel never saw her daughter again. The shelter couldn't protect her from that. So she came back. The hitting resumed within a week. Rachel closed her eyes. The thought came unbidden. One day he'd go too far, and Lena would be the one to find her. She pushed the thought away. Tomorrow. She'd think about it tomorrow. Doc stood outside the clubhouse at 4 in the morning, smoking a cigarette he didn't want. The night was cold, stars sharp overhead. Behind him, bikes were being prepped, engines checked, gas tanks topped off. Chief stepped out, leather vest zipped against the chill. You good? Yeah. You're lying. Doc took a drag, exhaled slow. That kid in there? She's got more guts than half the men I served with. Rode 2 miles in the dark to save her mom. And all I keep thinking is, my daughter did that once. Called me from a foster home, begging me to come get her. Couldn't. Didn't have custody. Didn't have rights. His voice cracked. I couldn't even tell her it'd be okay. Chief was quiet for a long moment. Then, so you saved this one. That fix anything? Doesn't have to. It still matters. Doc crushed the cigarette under his boot. Let's ride. The rumble started low, like distant thunder rolling across the desert. Rachel's eyes snapped open. She knew that sound, motorcycles, plural, getting closer. Her heart kicked against her ribs. Travis stirred beside her, groaning. The hell is that? Rachel sat up, every instinct screaming danger. She swung her legs off the mattress and moved to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough to see. Her breath caught. 15 motorcycles lined the dirt road in front of her trailer, engines idling in a low, synchronized rumble. Men in leather vests stood in formation across her patchy lawn, arms crossed, faces shadowed in the pre-dawn light. Dawn light silhouetted them against the horizon, dark figures backlit by the breaking day. Travis. Her voice shook. Travis, get up. He stumbled out of bed, still half drunk from the night before, and lurched to the window. What the? Who the hell are these guys? Rachel's mind raced. Had she forgotten to pay someone? Had Travis pissed off the wrong people? Then she noticed the man in front, stepping forward, something in his hand. The knock came firm but not aggressive. 3 solid raps. Travis grabbed an empty beer bottle from the nightstand, testing its weight. Stay here. But Rachel was already moving toward the door, some instinct telling her this wasn't about Travis. Not entirely. She opened it. The man standing on her crooked front step was older, maybe mid-40s, with weathered skin and eyes that had seen too much. He wore a leather vest with patches she couldn't read in the dim light, and his hands were scarred like he'd built his life with them. He held out a piece of paper. Crayon. A blue house. A crying stick figure. Rachel's knees went weak. Oh my God. Lena. She's safe, Doc said immediately, his voice steady and low. She's at the diner with my friend Donna. eating pancakes. But she came to me last night, ma'am. And she asked me to help you. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. Behind her, Travis appeared, shoving past her. Who the hell do you think you are, showing up at my house? He stopped dead when he saw the line of bikers. Stopped like he'd hit an invisible wall. Doc didn't move, didn't raise his voice. We're not here for trouble. We're here to make sure this family is safe. That's all. Travis tried to recover, puffing his chest. You threatening me? You got no right. We're not threatening anyone. Doc's eyes never left his. We're just having coffee. On a public street. A sunrise. That a problem? Behind Doc, one of the bikers, a massive man with a gray beard, pulled a thermos from his saddlebag and took a slow sip, never breaking his stare. Travis looked from Doc to the wall of leather and chrome, then back to Rachel. Something flickered in his eyes. Fear. Real fear. This is harassment, Travis spat, but his voice had lost its edge. I could call the cops. Go ahead. Doc pulled out his phone and held it out. Save you the trouble. The silence stretched like a wire pulled too tight. Then a woman stepped forward from the group. She was small, maybe 50, with kind eyes and a scar that ran from her temple to her jaw. She walked right past Travis like he didn't exist and stopped in front of Rachel. My name's Karina, she said softly. Can we talk? Just you and me. Rachel looked at the stranger, at the scar running down her face, and felt something give way inside. She nodded. Karina took her hand and led her to the front step, sitting down like they had all the time in the world. Behind them, the bikers remained motionless, a wall of protection that needed no words. I know you're scared, Karina said. I was too. My ex put me in the hospital twice before I finally ran. That was 8 years ago. Rachel's throat tightened. I tried to leave. He said he'd take Lena. He can't. Not without a court order. And trust me, with his record. Karina shook her head. We checked. He's got priors. Assault. Parole violations. No judge is giving him custody. I don't have anywhere to go. No job. No money. Yes, you do. Karina squeezed her hand. We've got safe houses. Women who know exactly what you're going through. And one of our guys runs a garage. He needs someone. Real job, decent money. Hours that work around a kid's schedule. Rachel stared at her. Why would you do this for me? Because someone did it for me once. And because your daughter was brave enough to ask. Karina's eyes glistened. You don't have to decide right now. But you need to know. You're not alone anymore. Behind them, Travis had backed into the doorway, his bravado crumbling. He looked at Doc, at the silent army on his lawn, and something shifted in his face. Calculation. Survival instinct. I'm leaving, he said suddenly. This is crazy. I'm leaving. Smart choice, Doc said evenly. Travis disappeared inside. Rachel heard drawers slamming, things being thrown into bags. 10 minutes later, he emerged with a duffel bag and his keys, not looking at anyone. He climbed into his truck, hands shaking so badly he dropped the keys twice. The engine started. The truck backed out, tires spitting gravel. Within minutes, he was gone. Rachel stood frozen on her front step, watching the taillights disappear down the highway. She couldn't breathe, couldn't process what had just happened. Then Doc stepped forward and handed her a card. That's Karina's number. And mine. You call if he comes back. You call if you need anything. We're not going anywhere. Rachel looked at the card, then at the faces surrounding her. Strangers who'd showed up when everyone else had looked away. Can I see my daughter? Her voice cracked. She's waiting for you, Doc said. I'll take you to her right now. As Rachel climbed onto the back of Doc's bike, holding tight while the sun broke over the horizon, she took a breath that reached deeper than any she'd taken in years. 3 weeks later, Rachel torqued the last bolt on the carburetor and stepped back. Not perfect, but it would run. That counted for something. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, her work, her learning, her new life taking shape one greasy part at a time. Nice job, Carter. Gunnar appeared beside her, wiping oil from his own hands. You're getting good at this. Rachel smiled, something she was still getting used to. Thanks. Feels good to actually fix things instead of watching them break. The apartment above the laundromat was small. One bedroom, kitchen the size of a closet. But the locks worked and the windows actually opened. On good mornings, sunlight filled every corner. Karina had co-signed the lease. The job at Gunnar's garage paid enough to cover rent and groceries, with a little left over. Lena had her own room for the first time in her life, walls painted purple at her request. The bruises had faded. The fear took longer, but it was fading too. Her phone buzzed. A text from the parent volunteer group. Bake sale Friday? Can you bring cookies? Small, ordinary things that felt like miracles. Across town, Doc sat in the Red Rock Diner. Same booth where it all started, stirring coffee he wasn't drinking. The letter sat on the table, read so many times the creases had gone soft. Dear Dad, I saw the news story about the little girl and the motorcycle club. They mentioned your road name document. I remembered that. Mom used to call you that when she was happy. I'm grown now, living in Sacramento, finishing my degree in social work. I spent a lot of years angry at you, and Mom, at everyone. Therapy helped me understand that anger and love aren't as different as I thought. I don't know if you want to hear from me. Maybe too much time has passed. But I'm going to be in Reading next month for a conference. If you want to meet for coffee, I'd like that. No pressure. Just coffee. Melissa Doc's hands trembled as he set the letter down. He'd read it so many times he could recite it by heart, but it still felt like something from someone else's life. Not his. The bell above the door chimed. Lena burst in, backpack bouncing. Her face lit up like Christmas morning. Doc barely had time to stand before she crashed into him, wrapping her arms around his waist. Doc, guess what? I got an A on my science project. Mrs. Henderson said it was the best one in the whole class. He hugged her back. This fierce little kid who'd changed everything. That's amazing, kiddo. What was the project? The solar system. I made Saturn with real rings using coat hangers and papier-mâché. Karina helped me paint it. Rachel appeared behind her daughter, shaking her head with fond exasperation. She's been talking about it all day. Wanted to come tell you first thing. I'm honored. Doc gestured to the booth. Sit. Pancakes. With chocolate chips. Lena was already sliding in. While Donna took their order, Rachel noticed the letter. Everything okay? Doc hesitated, then slid it across the table. Rachel read it, her expression softening. Doc, this is incredible. Are you going to meet her? I don't know. What if she sees me and realizes I'm still the same screw-up who couldn't keep her safe? You're not that person anymore. Rachel's voice was firm. Look what you did for us. Look what you do for this whole town. Your daughter deserves to know who you became. Lena looked up from her coloring menu. Is Melissa your daughter? Lena's eyes went wide. Can I meet her? I bet she's nice. You're nice. Doc's throat tightened. Maybe, Lena. Maybe. The story broke 2 days later. Local reporter Jordan Hayes had been digging, interviewing neighbors, pulling police reports. The headline hit the morning news. Vigilante justice or community protection? Motorcycle club takes law into own hands. The article painted the Broken Sons as dangerous, their actions as intimidation. It questioned whether showing up armed with numbers was any different from violence. Some quoted neighbors claimed they'd been terrorized by the display. Doc's phone exploded. Chief called an emergency meeting. The local police chief wanted a conversation. But the most surprising call came from Rachel. I'm doing an interview, she said. Channel 7. Tomorrow morning. They asked if I'd tell my side. Rachel, you don't have to. Yes, I do. You showed up when no one else did. It's time someone said that out loud. The interview aired at 6 p.m. Doc watched from the clubhouse, surrounded by his brothers. Rachel sat in front of the camera, steady and clear-eyed. The interviewer asked about the morning the bikers arrived, using words like confrontation and intimidation. Rachel cut her off. They didn't hurt anyone. They didn't threaten anyone. They just showed up. Her voice strengthened. I called the police 4 times. You know what happened? They wrote it down. They left. Every single time. He'd wait till they were gone. Then it would start again. My boyfriend had priors. Everyone knew he was dangerous, but nothing ever changed. But don't you think? I think 15 people cared enough to drive across town at sunrise to make sure a 7-year-old girl and her mother were safe. I think they opened doors I didn't even know existed. I think they gave me my life back. Rachel's eyes shone. You want to call that vigilante justice? Fine. But I call it the only justice I ever got. The clip went viral within hours. Support poured in, survivors sharing their own stories, thanking the club, asking how to find similar help in their towns. The narrative shifted. Friday afternoon, Doc stood outside a coffee shop in Reading, his heart hammering. He'd changed shirts 3 times. Chief had literally pushed him out the clubhouse door. Then she walked up. Melissa, 22 years old, with his eyes and her mother's smile. She stopped 5 feet away, studying him. Hi, Dad. Hi, baby girl. His voice broke. They stood there, a lifetime of loss between them, and then Melissa stepped forward and hugged him. Brief, careful, but real. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. They sat by the window, talked for 2 hours. She talked about college and the work she was doing with foster kids. He talked about the club and about a little girl who'd handed him a crayon drawing 3 weeks ago. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, Melissa said finally, but I want to try. That's more than I deserve. Maybe. She smiled, small but genuine. But Lena's drawing kind of reminded me. Sometimes people just need someone to show up. You showed up for her. Maybe you can show up for me now too. Doc reached across the table. She took his hand. It wasn't redemption. Sitting there with his daughter's hand in his, Doc didn't know what it was yet, but it was something. And right now, that was enough. Lena's whisper became a roar that echoed far beyond one trailer park. It reminded a town that real strength isn't about size or fear. It's about showing up when it matters most. What would you do if someone handed you a cry for help? Would you turn away, or would you ride at dawn? Drop your thoughts below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe to embrace the journey, because every story here reminds us that courage comes in all forms, and kindness has no expiration date. See you in the next video.